Hello everyone, welcome back to Nib Pickin'. My name is Steven and I am here to give you fountain pen reviews and fountain pen type videos. Today we are looking at a pretty famous fountain pen, one of those ones that's touted for beginners a lot. Like, this is a lot of people's first fountain pen. It was not my first fountain pen, but I did buy it a while back, and this might be a controversial video because it's a favorite among a lot of people, and I personally don't feel like I care for this pen very much compared to some of the other pens that I have. It is the Pilot Metropolitan. I have this in a gray finish with a houndstooth pattern around the band. It comes in a lot of other patterns, a lot of different colors. And again, it's a lot of people's first fountain pen because it's very simple. It comes with a good old reliable fountain pen Pilot nib, and it comes with its own converter. The converter is different from a lot of converters you would get in a fountain pen. It has its own issues. We're going to look at those issues together, and I'm going to do a drawing sample, and I'm going to talk at the end of this video about whether or not I feel this is a good fountain pen for artists. Stay tuned. I prefer a more subdued look. Some of them have some crazy neon colors and really interesting retro patterns along this band, but for me, I like the houndstooth pattern. You can see along the back it says Pilot Japan, and along the clip here as well you see Pilot again, a little striped pattern. The clip is pretty functional. Who knows 10 years down the line if it falls off, but it's worked pretty well so far. I don't usually clip my pens, but some people do like to hear about that. And it says on the other side of the clip, Japan. So there's a lot of brand recognition here. This is kind of a very important pen for Pilot. I'm sure they sell a lot of units of these. Anyway, as I take the cap off, you can see there's a really big step down where the edge of the pen goes in to meet the section and the feed, the sort of the business end of the pen. I don't personally care for step downs like this. I prefer a pen that's a little more straight on this edge right here, and the reason why is because as I create or draw with my pen, I tend to find that depending on what kind of line I'm going to be making, I might hold it here, which is where most people would hold this pen for writing, but then I might hold it further back to make stronger, like longer, straighter lines. And there might be a situation where I'd be tempted to hold it here, but with this pen, it's pretty uncomfortable to do that, so I wouldn't do it. That's one of the reasons I like smoother transitions. And the end result with this pen, of course, is that you get that nice straight profile. This is a pretty standard shape for a fountain pen. There's a lot of brands of fountain pens that have a pen in this sort of shape. They call it a cigar shape. And yeah, it looks pretty standard. I feel like you could find a lot of pens that have a very similar look to them at varying price points, this being on the lower end of that spectrum. So anyway, there's the section. It's plastic. The pen itself is made of aluminum. It feels nice. It's really light, so if you don't like heavy pens, then this could be a good choice for you. And it unscrews, and we have this plastic section with the converter, and this is the converter that comes with the pen. I'm not a big fan of this converter either. The reason being, see if I can remove it. Yep. It's a rubber sack converter, so it's got this little rubber sack, and when you push down on it, it comes in, and then the suction on the end here draws the ink back up in, and there's a little kind of a piece of metal that bends. This isn't very sturdy, and you cannot see inside to confirm that there's ink inside the pen, so there's a lot of ways in which this little converter, although it is free, is not great. And this pen also takes the Pilot Con 40 converter, which is somewhere between $5-6 depending on where you buy it. So that's an interesting upgrade you could have for this pen. Kind of wonder myself why they wouldn't include a converter like that with this pen, although it is a cheaper pen, so maybe that's the reason. At the same time, this pen does a little bit of a disservice in the ways that it's inconvenient compared to converters that come with other pens, even pens around this price range. So this is a point against it, this converter right here. Here's the section with the nib and the feed, and you can see at the edge of that nib it says Pilot, F for fine, and the bottom Japan. It's a little bit of an etching for a little bit of a pattern on there. Very simple. It's a less expensive pen from a company that makes pens that go, you know, even up to several thousands of dollars. And here we're talking about one that's usually under $20, depending on where you buy it. With its friction fit, so with just a little bit of pressure here, I can pull out the feed. And one thing I really do like about these feeds, this is just a plastic feed. It's got little notches on the edge there. And so those notches help align the nib. So you can take this nib off. There's a little notch on the bottom too. There's no really way to misalign this nib as long as you sort of fiddle with it to make sure that it goes into the grooves that are set for it. So no fear of taking apart this pen completely, disassembling it for a nice cleaning. In that way, it's very functional and useful, and the fact that you could pull it apart piece by piece to clean each individual part will make it the kind of pen that you can buy once, and it's not likely to break down, fall apart, or sort of betray you and squirt ink into your pocket or anything like that. So it is a solid purchase for a first pen, despite some of the criticisms I have of the design and the shape and some of the other things that are included with it. Anyway, let's get this reassembled and we will fill it up with some ink. Okay, so to fill this pen, I really wanted to use the Three Oysters Sea of Notions ink. It's probably my favorite color when mixed with this diluting agent that they call Mermaid's Tears, but I don't have a very convenient way to fill it because it has to be mixed. And I don't have little sample vials, which might be something I want to invest in the future. But just in case of a mess, I've got a napkin here, and I'm going to try using this syringe to fill it up, starting with the Mermaid's Tears. I'm going to take in a little bit of that, and then I'm going to pull some from the Three Oysters. This is Sea of Notions Blue. I have a whole video on this on my channel. It remains still probably my favorite color. And I'm just going to take, I'm just going to take a little tiny bit with the intention to take roughly an ounce of this and then be able to put it into the, I sincerely hope I don't have a mess on this paper, but I'm going to actually take the converter out. This is that squeeze converter. You can't see how full it is, which is a bit of a problem, especially with what I'm about to do, but let's hope that I didn't take too much ink. Okay. Yep, all right, I'm gonna put it on there, and then we're gonna use this color ink, and hopefully, I'm just shaking it up, hopefully it comes out looking decent. Right, ready to rock and roll. So for today's video, for the drawing, I'm actually gonna use this Rhodia Webnotebook that I got in the mail. I wanted to use, I didn't intend to use this as a sketchbook. I actually intended to use it as a journal. I've used Rhodia paper before, so I kind of know what it's like. It's a little slick for me, but I want to see how it functions with this pen. Some of you may also be curious what Rhodia paper is like. A lot of fountain pen writing people love it. I know that they sell blank versions of this according to the link that I saw on Amazon, but I also heard from the reviews there were people talking about how they ordered the blank and they ended up getting a lined version, and I ordered a lined version and ended up getting a dot version, which means that I guess I can kind of use it for sketches. I still find these dots to be kind of cumbersome and in the way, and apparently Rhodia is not keeping track of what order was placed and which notebook to send, so I guess buyer beware. But I'm gonna open this up. We're gonna look inside and see what it's like, and see if I recommend it. So yeah, there's a little band to keep it closed, and inside there's this paper liner that comes right out. I like the feel of it right away. I can tell it feels like good quality hardcover. There's embossing right here with the Rhodia logo, a couple of trees. It's got a little bookmark kind of thing, just very similar to like a Moleskine, but Moleskine, in my opinion, is really bad for fountain pens. Got kind of a cream texture to the paper, not as translucent looking as the Tomoe River paper that I checked out last time in the last video where I was checking out some fountain pen paper. And again, these dots to me, I don't really want to create a lot of art on here. I'm going to use this as a journal for writing in with my fountain pens. But I think for this first page, I'm going to come up with something that's going to inspire me to write lots of creative things this year. So we will get to it. This ended up being a very short drawing sample. I usually speed up my videos about 10 times. So based on how much time we've got here, this took me about an hour and a half, which is not as long as some of my other videos go. This is another visualization of one of my New Year's resolutions, which is create more, post less, trying to draw a larger percent compared to what I post. The pen held up fine. I mentioned this a few times in this video, but the feed of Pilot nibs is quite wet, and that became an issue for me as a left-hander as well. In this Clairefontaine paper, it was a little hard to avoid smudging, but it made it through all right. There was kind of a surprise with the paper, and you're going to see that in a little bit. Okay, so quick insert for you guys here. As I finished up the drawing, I want to point out something that happened. I'm okay with how it turned out. I'm not 100% pleased, but the thing that surprised me was that, if you can see, it actually bled through pretty significantly to the other side. Even on the page on the opposite side, you can see a little tiny ink dot that obviously bled through from this part of the drawing right here, which isn't even a terribly dark part. I thought there might be more bleeding here, which there is a little bit, but that's kind of disappointing. So I'm kind of glad that I'll just be using this Rhodia dot pad journal for writing as opposed to sketching, because it appears as though this drawing plus this pen plus the ink, it's always a combination of the three that creates the outcome. It's not really a match, not to the level of the Tomoe River paper, which I was much more impressed with. So good to know. This to me is not ideal. Might be better with a drier pen, because this Pilot Metropolitan is a very wet pen. But yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed. So after having done my drawing sample, checked out all the parts and features of the pen, I'm here to give you my opinion of it. To be honest, my opinion hasn't changed very much. There's a couple of things about this pen that I find are not ideal for myself. One of them being this very large step down that happens between the barrel of the pen and where your fingers go right here, the section. I find that sometimes when I want to draw straight lines, I hold my pen a little further back, almost like a brush, and sometimes it's right where that step down is a little bit uncomfortable. The Pilot nib suffers from that kind of over wetness that a lot of Pilot nibs have, and I really am not a fan of this squeeze converter. I believe it's the Pilot Con 20. And the fact that you can't see how much ink is in it, it kind of bothers me. And I don't know how long this, was it rubber or plastic or silicone, how long this little tube is going to last. Obviously, probably not as long as something that's made of plastic or resin or something like that. So with an upgraded converter, possibly, but as it comes, I find it's not my favorite. The thing that surprised me, though, was that the Rhodia Webnotebook did not live up to my expectations when drawing with it. I should point out that also it's quite good as a writing, as a journal type notebook, and I have been using it as that for quite some time now with no problems, no bleed through whatsoever. But with the drawing, it did cause that bleed through, which is not quite on the level of the Tomoe River paper that I reviewed a few videos back. So there it is. Those are my thoughts and opinions. And please, if you enjoy my content, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me if you enjoy this Pilot Metropolitan. What do you like about it? Or in fact, if you are like me and you were a bit let down, disappointed by the pen, please let's commiserate together in the comments. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day.